We're learning Mishnah Yis Nazir, Parak Vav, Chapter 6, Mishnah Aleph, Mishnah 1. Okay. Shloisha minim asurim benazir. Minim means kinds, but the way to translate the sentence is there are three kinds of things asurim benazir that are prohibited to a nazir. Hatuma, becoming impure from a dead body. V'atiglachas, hair cutting, basically shaving one's hair with a shaving one's hair. V'hayetzim and agafen, and products of the grapevine. These are the three categories of what are prohibited to a nazir. Now the Mishnah continues. V'chal hayetzim and hagefen, all things that come out from the grapevine, all products of the grapevine. Mitzdarfin zeh im zeh, they combine with each other. That means to say that, as we're going to learn, in order for a nazir to be liable to punishment, to lashes, for transgressing the prohibition of partaking of the products of a grapevine, there's a certain shear, there's a certain amount that he has to eat, and we're going to see soon what that shear is, what that amount is. But the Mishnah is now saying that all the different types of products from a grapevine can combine to make that amount. Now, when we talk about all the different kinds of products of a grapevine, we mean basically things that the Torah speaks about. And we're talking here about things that you consume right now, not things about you drink. So all products of the grapevine, such as moist grapes, dry grapes, skins, and pits. These are all things the Torah forbids a nazir from partaking of. These are all products of the grapevine. And they can combine with one another to make up the minimum amount that if a nazir would partake from them, he'd be liable for lashes. Practically speaking, even less than the amount, it's forbidden to eat. But you're not liable for any punishment unless you eat the prescribed amount. So now the Mishnah says, he's not going to be liable to any kind of lashes until he eats from the grapes a kazayas, the volume of an olive. The volume of an olive, referring to an olive in the signs of the Mishnah. The volume of an olive means measured with displacement. If you put an olive in water, how much water it would displace. And the Mishnah's wording right now is that you're not liable until you eat from the grapes a kazayas. Okay, which is the typical standard amount when we talk about eating in the Torah, whether it be for a mitzvah to eat something or if it's a prohibition to eat something. The prohibition, the mitzvah is going to apply in its fullest. Let's put it that way, either regarding fulfilling a mitzvah or getting lashes, if it's a kazayas. Now, something here that the Mishnah does not specifically talk about is how much drinking. How much wine? We're talking about, the Torah also forbids wine. It doesn't just forbid grapes and grape products. It forbids wine. So how much wine do you have to drink in order to be liable for a punishment, for a nazir? How much? Mishnah doesn't say right now. Doesn't say. Now, if we read a little bit further, Mishnah Rishona, the first version of the Mishnah, which we'll explain what that means soon, goes that the nazir is only going to be liable at sheyishte revius yayin, till he drinks a revius of wine. Okay? So the first version about the liability of a nazir is he's got to drink a revius of wine. The later version is he has to eat a kazayas of grapes. They're seemingly talking about two separate things, but they really are talking about both. Because, as explained here on the bottom, based on the words of the Torah where the Torah talks about a nazir, the Torah connects the two things. The Torah connects eating and drinking, and at one point, according to the Mishnah, according to the first version of the Mishnah, the starting point is how much wine do you need to drink to be liable for drinking wine? A revius. Revius is what we call a quarter of a lug. That's a liquid measure. Nowadays, we talk about it anywhere ranging between, let's call it 3 fluid ounces, like 5 fluid ounces. And the starting point is that the nazir cannot drink a revius of wine. how much grapes or grape products does he need to eat? A revius. Meaning a revius is typically a liquid measure. But if the starting point is the drinking, which means the starting point is that the Nazir will be forbidden to drink wine, like any other type of drink that the Torah talks about, the amount is a revius. So now we're going to say not only is he going to be liable only if he drinks a revius of wine, but only if he eats the volume of a revius of wine will he be liable. And what that means is that, and actually the way they say it here is that quarter lug, which is about 3 times as much as a kazayas, that raises the bar of eating much higher. But that's the way it goes. If you start from the drinking point, then we say only if he drinks the volume of a revius, meaning you've got to take that liquid volume and convert, and then figure out that volume in actual food, and that's when you're going to be liable. You're going to be lashes for eating. But that's the Mishna Rishona. That's what the Mishnah mentions second, which is the first version of the Mishnah. The first version of explains what first version of the Mishnah means. But our Mishnah first mentioned that you're not liable until you eat a kazayas of grapes. According to this version, the starting point is the eating. And being that the eating is only a liability if you eat a kazayas of the grape products, when it comes to drinking, it's the same idea. If you drink the volume of an olive, you'll be liable.
Could those be combined?
No. We'll see about that. We'll see soon if that can be combined. I don't think they can. But now the discussion just is right now, what's the shear? Right? We mentioned before, it's the products, the grapevine products can combine. That's fine. But combine for what amount? So either any amount, anything that the Nazir is forbidden on, whether it be food or drink, whether it be grape products or whether it be wine itself. According to the way the Mishnah first says, they all are going to be according to the amount of the volume of an olive. And then the Mishnah mentions the original version was that actually they're going to have to be measured by the volume of a quarter lug of wine. Okay? Now, what does it mean, Mishnah Rishona, the first version of the Mishnah? The explanation they say down here is the Mishnah that we have was edited by Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Rabbi Judah the Prince, over the course of many years from earlier texts of the Mishnah. The first Mishnah refers to an earlier version of the Mishnah that was later changed. So basically, he was editing different texts of Mishnah that already had existed. I mean, it wasn't compiled in the full form of the Mishnah, but he was, over the course of many years, he was editing earlier texts of the Mishnah, either earlier texts that he had made or earlier texts of sorts that they may have had before him. And that's what's going on here. The Mishnah mentions the later text because that's the text that we follow. And therefore, it started off saying you're only liable until you eat a kazayas of grapes, which also means you're only going to be liable for drinking a kazayas, the volume of an olive of wine. Mishnah Rishona, the Mishnah says, the earlier version went achishli revius yayin. They're liable until he drinks a quarter lug of wine, which also means that your eating liability will only be if you eat the volume of a quarter of a lug. The Mishnah concludes, Rabbi Kiva says, Afilu shara pitoy bayayin. Let's say the Nazir soaks his bread in wine. He steeps his bread in wine. V'yesh p'kadei latzaris kazayis. And now between the wine and the bread, if you combine them, you will form the volume of an olive. Chayav, you're liable. According to Rabbi Akiva, and again he has his basis. He bases what he says on the words of the Torah. It comes out that if you want the amount of, let's say, a kazayas, right, can actually be a combination of the wine plus what is essentially permissible. The bread is essentially permissible. If you steep the bread in wine, why can't you eat it? Because it has wine in it. But according to Rabbi Akiva, in order to create the amount that you're liable for, you could actually, even if you don't have a kazayas of, even if you don't have the prescribed amount of wine in the bread, the bread itself combines to form the minimum amount. That's Rabbi Akiva's chiddush. That's his novel idea. We do not pass like Rabbi Akiva in this. And therefore, in order to be liable in the case of the wine that was, that was steeped in the bread that was steeped in the wine, there's got to be a kazayas of wine in the bread in order to be liable. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.